Hello, story seekers. We're still here with the German maestro himself, Silas A. Bischoff. Silas! Are you prepared for questions?
Yes, I have my notes before me.
Have your notes. Throw your notes out the window. I'm going to ask you questions the likes of which you've never heard unless you've listened to this podcast before. Silas! What's the first story you wrote which meant something to you?
I've never heard that question in your episodes. I think as a writer, I might be so early on this journey that the piece of writing you're asking for might still be in my future. But if I sift through the writings of my past, the first that I can remember is actually something that was even published. I was in primary school, and there was a story contest where the teacher would submit stories of their students. It was dream related. I guess it's only important to me because I can remember it and it was published and I was, I don't know, 8 or something. It was, yeah, it even was a horror story, I think. What else? I guess the first that meant something to me in the sense of the words meaning something to yourself, to you is would be the poems, the angsty poems I wrote when I was 16.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that answer. I like that answer a lot.
I don't look back on them too fondly, but some of them I'm impressed with what I did when I was 16. It was also around the time when I first started to write a novel. Although that's not even true. When I was 10, I tried to write a sequel to Fellowship of the Ring, even though I haven't even finished that. And of course, there already is a sequel to Fellowship
I
of
was
the Ring.
going to say, I don't know if anyone's told you this, but there is in fact a sequel.
We're about to blow your mind. There's a whole load of those books.
I was aware of that at the time, but I was a child and I didn't bother with it. I bothered with it.
Looked at 2 Towers and said, "This is
a year after.
overwritten. I reckon I could do better."
I don't remember anything that was in it. I just remember I had it and I was walking around the schoolyard with this folder. Anyway, I guess
these angsty poems. Did you feel like you were getting something out by doing that, or because I think we've probably all been through that period where you write this horrendous shit when you're 15, 16-year-old with delusions of grandeur about your current level of your writing abilities, and it can be quite cringy going back. But I know that Nico and I recently went back and reread stuff from when you were like 16 and when I was about 18.
Yeah,
and I think you can sort of see stuff that the true stuff that's come with you, not the angsty bullshit, but like maybe like an outlook or a way that you turn a phrase. Is there anything that you're still holding, that has survived into adulthood with you from those angsty poems?
When I look back at them, I even think they are written like without. I don't want to sound pretentious, but I think they are actually written well for someone that age. And I think the stuff that I take away from them that impress me most in a way actually are the edgy, angsty things in there, bits in there, because they are real in a way. I felt them in a way back then that I don't really feel stuff anymore. Right now when I'm writing, it's all very technical. I guess that's generally a thing when you grow up. I think I'm now better equipped at crafting a story about someone going through an emotional journey. But I think what I cannot do as well is experience an emotional journey and like the raw output that I produced back then. Not that it's better in any capacity, but than what I do now. But that's That's the thing that when I look at those poems and short stories from back then, that I find most impressive.
Do you have a method of trying to access that kind of that feeling when you're writing? Like, are they a useful touchstone for you to sort of remind you so that you can then put that in?
Not really. They just make me a little sad that I'm out of touch with that inner self by now. But yeah, I don't know.
So we talked a lot about your your early work, and this. I love this idea of you having written a novel and having it in a binder and carrying it around with you at school. That's very cute. But where would you recommend the folks listening start reading your work? Like, is there just the one book out, or have you got short stories places that people can read as well?
I have a couple short stories that have been, and a couple means very few, that are out there somewhere. There are two out there that were the winning entries in a flash fiction competition called Story Time. I guess the first of those would probably also have been a good answer. It's called A Feast for Saints. It was also published in an online magazine called Metastellar. And then I'm on Ream also, if you know that platform. It's like Patreon for writers, but yeah.
Oh, interesting. No, I've actually not heard of that before.
If you Google Ream stories, you'll find it. And I'm on there just with my name, and there's a couple short stories there. But yeah, I only have that one book out, so I guess that one book would be a good start.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to ask you about A Crow Named Torment, but I wanted to save it for the pod. Did you write it in German or in English when you wrote it originally?
I wrote it in English first. By now, I almost exclusively write in English. Yeah, my first projects when I first tried to write novels back when I was 16 and so forth were in German. I guess my English was decent back then, but definitely not at a level where it would have been a reasonable choice to write a whole novel in English. And then over the years, English kind of became my native language in regards to pop culture and stuff like that. I think by now it would be hard for me to write a science fiction story or fantasy story or any kind of story in German, because I'm just not that accustomed to how fictional narrative works in German. I know I've kind of just immersed myself in, because I always found that the English speaking, for example, fantasy and science fiction community were always like the frontier, for me, and while German authors lagged behind, I think, and in the trends and stuff like that.
When you were talking before about the potential struggle to find the sort of emotional authenticity sometimes, do you think that might actually be linked to the fact that you are in a lot of ways writing like through translation? Like the words have to go through a couple of steps before they can hit the page.
That could be. I guess I don't self-reflect enough to be aware of that. That might be the case. I mean, I could try, but I have to say, I'm not that interested anymore in trying to find myself, cathart my own emotional problems out of me by writing. I'm more interested in concepts, and I'm more interested in building on all the stuff that I read, and all of that is in English. I definitely wouldn't know how to write a battle commander speech or something like that in German. It would just be very weird and awkward. But for me, English is the language in which that sort of stuff happens, in which epic battles are fought, and in which myths unfold and stuff like that.
I think that's an absolutely fascinating perspective and really cool. And I would say that you have complete native fluency, so it's not an issue from my perspective.
I'm good at feigning it, I know. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We've had plenty of chats, and I think it's very, very strong. But I think that is a really cool perspective. Do you have any plans to write characters that have a similar sort of experience where they've grown up? They're sort of early languages, their native language, isn't the one that they do their work in. Like, that seems like it would be quite good for a story, because it's a really fascinating perspective.
It is. I haven't thought about that. It's not on my very long list of things I want to do. The very long list of things I want to do has very little to do with my own experiences. Sometimes I think I want to do something that, like, want to write something that pulls something from my own life, but then I look at all the other ideas that have more to do with, I don't know, alternate dimensions and whatnot, and all that stuff is way more interesting than my life. And so I want to focus on that. Yeah, I mean, at some point I probably will want to do something else, but yeah, right now I'm more focused on getting all that stuff out of the system that's itching.
Well, with all that knowledge of plots and storytelling and all the rest of it, and that sort of cutting edge of sci-fi and fantasy, I think it's safe to say that we should definitely ask you this question, which is, hypothetically, two writers are being held hostage by a powerful and capricious bibliomancer who is hell-bent on getting the best books he can for his magical library. What novel would you recommend to that wizard in order to save our lives? Hypothetically.
I mean, those hypothetical story seekers could. I just recently finished the first Law series again. I guess it contains lots of hints about the downfalls of listening to malicious wizards. Maybe these story seekers could read that and form their own strategies to shed their shekels and strike down that tyrant.
I like
yeah,
that.
but
Dissidents. I like it.
if that tyrant needs stories to be appeased, you do what?
He's going to put us in the tower now.
Yeah, we're going in the tower. He's going to put us in with the cannibals. I'm soft. I don't want to do that.
Which level? I hear they differ in how terrible they are.
I think I'd be good as like a concierge on the lower levels. You know, like a maitre d' at the shit restaurants that they must have down there.
More Shattered Rocks, sir.
Yeah.
So
those lower levels, try to kill the wizard instead and go somewhere else.
Try to kill the wizard instead. I mean, Joe Abercrombie's First Law is a fantastic shout. Go on, Nico.
I don't know if you got anything really big and heavy and a hardback we could use, because I reckon it would be easier to kill him with it.
Just hit him with it. Yeah.
Just hit him with the entire bibliography of Brandon Sanderson, and he'll not be able to crawl out of that pile in a century.
I've written down Brandon Sanderson brackets in a bag, so I'll.
Bag's big enough.
I don't know if they are omnibuses or the big large collections of the Elric stories by Moorcock would probably also be good as weapons, and they would also be good entries for said wizard's library.
It's a really good answer. I like it a lot.
So, speaking of editing, because when the police come to find out about the people who killed a wizard with a bunch of books, I'll have to edit this conversation out. What's your editing process?
What's my editing process? I can say that I am lucky enough to have a job that earns me enough money that the last stage is a professional editor. But I know that that is a privilege among indie authors. But I definitely recommend doing that and setting money aside for that if you're serious, at least to get a copy edit, a professional
So
before
what's it like
publishing.
What's it like as an indie author to work with an editor like that?
Probably, I only did it the once, and I have never done it as a traditionally published author. So there's a lot of I don't know, but I can't really compare. So I guess traditionally published authors have more of a familiar rapport with their allotted editor. For me, it was basically just a business thing. I booked them, and our communication was very much about feedback on the draft, line edits, and they would ask me about some sections where they were unsure what my purpose was, and yeah, very businesslike. For indies, it's, I guess, more businesslike and concise than it is for traditionally published authors, which is efficient, but it's also, I guess, less. I kind of envy traditionally published authors there. This ecosystem that comes with a publisher and their editor, and the agent is also part of that. Whenever I get to listen to traditionally published authors and how that works for them, I'm a bit envious.
Oh, that's fascinating.
For me, I booked mine via an agency called Stardust Book Services, and I really liked her work. She did a very great job.
It's fantastic. Shout out to Stardust. The when you actually first started telling stories, because it sounded like you did it from a fairly young age, especially with that the book that you worked on when you were 10. Who inspired you to start telling your own stories?
The very unoriginal answer is just all the people that wrote the stories that I read. And I guess what's also part of this is my mother is an English teacher and also an avid reader. So I was I got to grow up in a household where, I don't know, where classics would sometimes be discussed at the dinner table and stuff like that. I guess that also seeped in. And then I'm, since a very young age, I'm also playing tabletop role-playing games. And I tend to gravitate towards the role of game master / dungeon master / storyteller, or whatever it's called in the system of your choice. And that also, I don't know, seems to naturally lead to where I am, I think.
What are the role-playing systems of your choice?
Oh, the role-playing systems of my choice are not, unfortunately, not the ones I get to play most of the time, because my my group doesn't really match my taste entirely. So there's a bit of overlap, and what I'm currently playing is a bit of Vampire the Masquerade, which is absolutely not my favorite system, but I make do.
So personally, fuck your group. What do you like?
No, don't fuck them. They're nice people, and I love all of them.
No, I'm sure they're lovely, but I care about you.
One thing I always wanted to do is basically live a fake 80s childhood fantasy of playing first edition Dungeons and Dragons or advanced Dungeons and Dragons, or some nice retro clone that keeps the vibe of those old dungeon crawling systems, and have a really merciless dungeon to explore, and I'll be charting maps on paper and stuff like that, and would be afraid to touch anything because there are one hit total party kills everywhere. Stuff like that. I would love to do something like that. Play through some revered old Dungeons and Dragons modules. I always wanted to play the original Ravenloft module.
I played the
stuff like
I
that.
played the there's a board game version. Escape, is it called like Escape Castle Ravenloft or something? But I played that. I think we've both played that actually. I think Nico. But,
One of the old 80s ones. It's
this would have been a more modern edition, I would assume.
Okay.
Yeah. But I get it. I think for myself, like I struggle with D&D because it has this kind of like reputation as being the sort of the general one, isn't it? It's the cookie cutter, and it can be very simple. And I personally had a lot of like really weak experiences with that system and setting as my first exposures to role playing, which I think has unfairly dispositioned me against it. Disposed me against it. Sorry. But I definitely get what you're saying about that vibe about like playing the early modules, like solid like 80s Stranger Things, rolling D20s in basements.
Yeah, that vibe. I want to be able to reconstruct that vibe that I only got to listen to my big brother how it was. But I have so many indie systems lying around here that have never been played. A lot of them are retro clones that go in that direction. There's one that's called Morkborg with
yes.
It's a doom metal, classic metal inspired retro clone dungeon crawling system. And then there's one, I guess, whole family of systems that is vastly different from this old school stuff. It's very modern and takes a very unique approach. It's the Fate family of. Did you know Fate?
Yeah.
You heard of it? Yeah. And as a writer, as a storyteller, the way it uses concepts of how you would narrate a story, how you would construct a story, and character arcs and stuff like that, and unfolding plots, and made a rule system that really forces you to tell a good story, and it does that really well. But the drawback is it's one of those systems where you can't have just one person who knows the rules. Where you can have just the GM knows the rules and everyone gets to ask questions when they do something. Everyone needs to be on board. Everyone needs to have read all the stuff, and everyone needs to be ready to take initiative. Otherwise, it won't work. Which is I have found in trying to keep groups alive is a really strong ask. Many players really just want to play and really just want to like skim the player rulebook and then ask questions. But you can't do that with Fate. But if you get to play with a group where everyone's really excited about the system and understands it, it is a blast. And I think that writers, a bunch of writers who also like tabletop role playing, will have a very good time with anything Fate related. What else? There's another system that I've always wanted to try out. It's called The Strange. The rule system behind it is a setting agnostic one that's called Cypher, the Cypher system.
Oh yes, I think I have encountered that.
And The Strange is an interesting setting for that system. It has to do with alternate dimensions with alternate worlds that exist by virtue of there being sentient minds dreaming up worlds, and then there's a multiverse of these imagined worlds existing because of that, and then there's the original world where we are in. And I guess the story that you'd play would always revolve around some sort of secret agency that is aware of these other worlds, and then like the walls between these worlds break down, and they need people who are able to project into these other worlds in order to solve problems and save the world and stuff like that. And they have this interesting gimmick where you have where you have basically a character sheet where part of it is like your inner character, and another part of it is your avatar in the world that you're in, and you get to like put the one half away and then stick on a different avatar when you project or translate. It's called in the system, translate into another world where you will have a new avatar. We will basically create a new half character that will get your inner character on top of it, but these different worlds can have different rules. Like there can be ones where magic exists and stuff like that. And
yeah, that sounds like another one where it would be really good for writers to do it as well. I think it's such an encouraging place for writers, isn't it? Like collaborative storytelling together. It's just something else. So good.
So there's so many great indie ideas that try to do exactly that. But go on with your questions.
I was going to say I've got a really solid idea now of what kind of role play systems you like. But when you're picking books to read, what themes call out to you?
What themes call out to me? The themes that I write myself. In A Crow Named Torment, you will also encounter like other worlds and ways to travel between worlds, and questions about how well can we trust our own perception of the world, our model of the world. Are the edges of our consciousness really as well defined as we think? That's the thing that a whole family of themes that I enjoy. My love for cyberpunk probably also has to do with that. There's one release last year by a guy called Bischoff, who I met at Worldcon. And Ben, you will probably love his book.
Go on, why?
It's called Because You Seem to Be. It is like a cyberpunk story in a science fantasy world. Basically, it has all the if you take cyberpunk and you take away the part that's about corporations and our modern society, and you take questions about consciousness and transhumanism and the nature of reality, and do we live in a simulation and stuff like that, the Matrix half of it, and you put it in a science fantasy noir story.
Oh,
and
cool.
you really go down hard on like taking apart our idea that consciousness is a well-defined thing.
It sounds really solid, really solid.
It's called Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory. And I think it is inspired a lot by Solaris by Stanislav Lem.
Oh wow, yeah.
Or I guess Jaroslav told me that it was after I mentioned it, which would be a book that I adored, and other books that go in similar directions by Boris and Arkady Strugatsky, Roadside Picnic. It's the source material for the Stalker games, or for the Tarkovsky movie Stalker.
I've mentioned the Strugatsky brothers on here a couple of times. I think I've actually brought them up. But that's a big one, isn't it? I know the Stalker series is heavy shit, basically.
If you know and love Roadside Picnic, and if you know and love Solaris, and would enjoy a more modern science fantasy noir take on ideas you can find in these books, then Sleeping Worlds Have No Memory by Jaroslav Mazukov.
So how would you go about, if you had all the resources at your disposal to do so, how would you go about starting a shift in culture towards an egalitarian cyber-communist utopia?
Because you saw that line on some of my socials.
You said it was your hobby, so I was interested to know how are you going to bring it about.
Well, I also said I think before recording started, I also said that recent world events were slowly
Yeah.
quenching my flame of political idealism and replacing it with cynicism, which is actually great for writing because writing utopia is boring, and writing about all the ways that things go to shit is way more fun, and that's the catharsis I need right now. But
That's fair.
yeah, as me personally, I am not yet decided on. I thought I had an idea of what I should do, but I struggle with finding the right strategic approach as a single person to really do something. And I always, my mind always gets to like weird threads of thought that are eerily similar to Musk thinking, where I need to get rich and then do this and that, and then build a space station and put clever people on there and have them wait until society has humanity is going to extinct on Earth and then restart or something like that. It doesn't make sense.
It gets dark.
It's not practical.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a chance, as everything gets more shit, that writing utopias will come back around again? Like, right now, you're like, but imagine if the nukes went and you had to pay your air subscription. But when you are signing up for a 24-month air subscription, are you going to be like, I want to write something about if the rabbits had won and we all lived in a nice burrow?
I definitely think that trends in writing reflect the state of society that produces that writing. I think we are, in a way, we are currently experiencing a shift where all that grimdark stuff is growing slightly out of fashion, and where all that cozy fantasy stuff is gaining traction. I guess that has to do with rising need for escapism because we live in a grimdark cyberpunk hellscape.
Yep.
When we look at like cyberpunk classic, they just describe a slightly different version of now.
Yeah.
Not often.
It's mostly just it's mostly if you take all the shit parts about how life is miserable, those apply. But the cool part about how I don't know, tech is cool. That doesn't apply.
Yeah, the Neuromancer is a fairly good example of that. I feel like it's just it still feels very relevant, and it was written in the late 80s. Was it the Neuromancer? I think.
Yeah.
Actually,
I
guess Gibson also coined the term cyberpunk.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. What would be my steps towards that? I think as a society, we are doing some things right. On the tech side, we are making some steps in the right direction, but those steps are disastrous if the social side doesn't tag along. And I will get ahead of you, and you will ask me about those robot overloads and how I think about them, how I feel about our AI robot overloads.
Oh, you're more than welcome to. Yeah, go for it.
It ties into this question nicely, doesn't it?
Sure.
So if we look at ChatGPT, for example, at large language models, at generative AI, in a way, that's a step towards the Star Trek replicator, right? But no one is watching Star Trek and thinks, "Oh, those replicators, they are the most horrific thing I've ever seen." I hope nobody is going to invent the Star Trek replicator. Everybody thinks, "Well, that's really nice. That's dope as hell. Let's build it." And it is not threatening, and it is cool because it is in the context of the space communist society that they have. And I think all that is bad about generative AI is not actually we feel threatened by it because we have already bought into the idea that we have to live in this late stage capitalist society, that is the end of social development, and we can't develop past that. So now there's only the tech advancing, and that's kind of the problem. We're actually, when we say, oh no, ChatGPT will replace artists. No, it doesn't replace artists. So artists are still there and they do art. What it replaces is the artist's ability to sustain themselves while they are wage dependent. And if we would do away with wage dependency, then it would just be a thing that nobody would think about producing art with, because art wouldn't be a commodity.
Now, I'm hoping getting rid of wage dependency is your answer to this next question. But what's your next project, Silas?
Yeah, if I knew a way to get rid of wage dependency, I would do it. There was. I know you are asking about writing, but I'll quickly drop a name. I think. What are they called? I have this book here. Check it out. There was this idea circulating that if we just achieve full automation on the tech side, then doing away with wage dependency must surely follow. Either that or we go extinct, but as a species, we would try not to go extinct and then establish a better society. They're called the accelerationists, those people behind this idea.
Oh, like go full like doomsday on it because we'll find a way out of it sort of scenario.
Yeah, but it also has a bitter aftertaste, because that's also a school of thought that then many of these Silicon Valley pseudo philanthropists latched onto. But I think that somewhere around there might be some hope to be found for scholars. But my next writing project. What is my next writing project? I don't have a next project. I have ADHD, so I'm doomed to have thousands and thousands of projects going on
35,
at the same time.
Yeah. Okay.
A project that I'm currently investing a lot of energy in, a lot of mind space in, is an alternate history sword and sorcery novel set in ancient Mesopotamia. I'm currently reading the Epic of Gilgamesh and various books on ancient Mesopotamian cultures. And that's my current obsession. So I will have to write several stories set in there. And I mean, much of the myths that we see used in modern fantasy have their origin somewhere in Mesopotamian mythology.
Absolutely.
But also Mesopotamian mythology is it is very metal, I think. If you look at it and the way they and those demons and the gods and the magic and stuff that they wrote about, and that was their spiritual the spiritual part of these Sumerian and Babylonian cultures. It's very metal, and I'm a great fan of metal and doom metal and black metal, and much of that is has also been inspired by Mesopotamia. There's a great metal band called Gilgamesh. They only made one album, but if you love like black and thrash metal stuff with a doomy touch to it.
I think I might have encountered them before, actually, because I got into Melakesh for a bit. That they were sort of like the most kind of Egyptian version, I think.
It's a German band, actually. I guess there are also great bands from the actual region, but I can't recall any names right now. Yeah, but that's one obsession. And then generally alternate history, and I have this whole idea of this whole setting going on in my head that I want to place several stories in. That is an alternate timeline where mythology is more tangible and real. And I also have a cosmic myth behind it that I made up myself that is closely related to how thermodynamics work in physics. But this alternate history I generally have a history thing right now. Another thing I'm reading is stuff on Henry Tudor and the ancestry of Henry Tudor and the War of the Roses. And I have several stories set in planned that are set in 15th century Britain. That are also sword and sorcery stories. What else? So many projects.
With the Mesopotamian one, you would have me as a reader, definitely. I love the stuff from that time period. I think my favorite oh shit moment from the Epic of Gilgamesh is the bit when you realize that it's written like roughly 2000 BC or something, so it's about 4,000 years ago. And then they just go straight into talking about how this dude who had an ark and survived a flood and he's immortal. And you're like, are you talking about fucking Noah? Are you talking about Noah long before Abrahamic religions existed?
No, they were talking about Ibtanishtu Natal, about that guy.
Exactly. That's the thing. We have this idea, don't we, that these religions that have defined a lot of the last 1,000, 2,000 years, rooted in the ancient deep past, and there's nothing back further than that. But we have a fucking story from before them that they clearly lifted from. And I had a proper oh shit moment when I was reading through the epic.
But that's also the thing. I mean, creationists obviously are idiots and believe something obviously false. But the idea of, are you still there, by the way?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but the idea of having access to a written to written accounts of the beginning of history. I guess if you look at ancient Mesopotamia, that's the closest that you can actually get there with, in truth, because the Sumerians were the first, at least as far as we know, the first to build cities, the first to envision a way of life that is not just a bunch of families settling down and herding their goats, but specialized vocations and institutions. And the first ever words written, that, as far as historians know, the first ever words written were basically business owners or administrators of business, basically writing what would now be on PowerPoint presentations, or even
spreadsheets or something. Yeah,
spreadsheets. Yeah, more fittingly spreadsheets, and stuff like that. Yeah, and that is. Just,
I have a very brief story that I'd like to tell about my deep-seated love for ancient Mesopotamia, and it is quite simply that you've probably been in this kind of situation where you're dating somebody and you're a 16-year-old boy, and the father of the person that you're dating decides that they're going to try and embarrass you, or they're going to pick holes in your argument or anything like that, or maybe that was just because I got it wrong and I don't know. But anyway, he was grilling me and he said, so and what are you what are you most interested in? And at the time I was reading about ancient Mesopotamia, so I said ancient Mesopotamia, and in a desperate effort to try and embarrass me, he went HMS Potato at me. Which has stuck with me. So literally whenever I hear the words ancient Mesopotamia now, my brain supplies the answer HMS Potato. So there you go. There's that. So
well, there was definitely some humiliation going on, but I think it went the other way.
In retrospect, and also I've immortalized him in fiction in this podcast now. So get wrecked. So, Silas, where should people go? It's been absolutely lovely having you on. It's been really nice to hear your story, and I appreciate your notes on our stories as well. But where should people go to keep up to date with your news? Where's the best place?
That would probably be Blue Sky, because that's the platform. If you're not on it, it is the least obnoxious social platform currently on offer, I think. So make an account, and otherwise the next best choice would probably be Instagram. which is an obnoxious platform, but I'm a millennial, so I'm doomed to have to be on it.
You just got to wade through all the first picks until you get to Silas. I think that's the idea. And also, your website is morbidtastepublishing.com as well, isn't it? Which is
that's also the name of my indie publishing company, quote unquote, because you can basically just become a publisher by attaching a name to the ISBNs you buy for your books. So I did that.
May as well. Well, thanks again, Silas. I think we're about to release you back to the wild, but it's been a delight talking to you. It was really nice meeting you at FantasyCon, and I found it very interesting hearing your outlook on storytelling. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, and I'll continue listening to your episodes in the car.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram at BookcaseTiny for updates. Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne, and for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?